Moonstone is drastically exceeding my expectations. I had a 68.4% win rate, gaining 50 cubes in high infinite with this Moonstone deck. With a 4-6 stat line, Moonstone has the ongoing effects of your 1, 2, and 3 cost ongoing cards at the lane that she is played. This gives her two main hooks, both of which are going to be used in the deck you're about to see. Hook number 1 is Victoria Hand, hook number 2 is Speed. Victoria Hand sends power all the way across the board, +4 to every created card. And of course, Speed goes extra tall with Moonstone. Having multiple copies of these effects is incredibly valuable, and that is what this deck is built around. This is the list, and it is an extension of other versions of the Iron Patriot Wiccan list that I've been playing for a little bit now, using 3 1-drops as opposed to a Quicksilver package because those 1-drops are so valuable to our game plan. Of course, we have Snowguard, creating cards that are going to be very useful and, of course, quite large if we get a couple Victoria Hand procs. We have Hydra Bob, who is our best follow-up to Iron Patriot, but I do think if you're worried about him, you can replace with a Quinjet. And of course, we have Maria Hill, our best way to make sure that we're going to get towards a Wiccan because she creates a 2-drop. In addition, this deck has our typical nut draw of the various Victoria Hand decks, which is Victoria Hand and then copying Victoria Hand with a Frigga. I have had multiple games where my curve is 1-drop V-Hand Frigga Wiccan. Completely disgusting. Very difficult to lose once that's what you're doing. Of course, we also have other card generators. Iron Patriot also goes very well with Frigga. And of course, Iron Patriot goes very well with Speed because Speed is a very large guy. And we already mentioned Hydra Bob. You can get multiple 1-drops off of Kate Bishop, and those are going to be additionally large with Victoria Hand and with Moonstone. Note, of course, that the Pym arrow is another thing that can make Moonstone even larger. So that means that this deck effectively takes those decks, cuts out the very top end, the awkward Devil Dinosaur stuff, and makes up for it by going extremely tall with multiple Victoria Hands and, of course, Speed and Moonstone. This means that the deck has a lot going for it. There's a ton of power here. It felt like we were doing things that were just generally stronger than a lot of what our opponents were doing, but it does have some pretty defined weaknesses, like opposing rogues, opposing enchantresses, and things of that nature. You'll notice that we're also playing Rogue here. A lot of that is because if you are able to Rogue an opposing Victoria Hand or an opposing Moonstone or an opposing Luke Cage, it is completely awesome. We'll see what that slot becomes. I think in a world where Moonstone didn't just come out and Victoria Hand didn't just come out, maybe that would be a Luke Cage, maybe that would be a Cosmo. As is, I've found it to be optimal to be Rogue. The rest of what this deck is doing should be very straightforward. We have overlaps in terms of what our deck is looking like, but basically what we're doing here is vomiting a massive amount of power with the ability to run at least one tech card in the form of Rogue, and maybe the ability to fit more in, depending on how you feel about Mirage, who I definitely do like right now. This is a powerful deck that is looking to exploit various ways of cheating on energy and on stats. So we have effectively our Elsa Bloodstone in the form of Victoria Hand and our energy cheat in the form of Iron Patriot and Wiccan. Do not get annoyed if you don't get your Wiccan. That's going to happen some of the time. It's fine. This deck does not need Wiccan. Wiccan is just there because you're already kind of wanting to be something in this shape. And that is something that you're very happy to just have alongside. You're not always going to be doing it, but you already kind of want to be doing it, and that is what Wiccan's role is. With all of that said, let's get into the card-by-card breakdown. Maria Hill is a staple card in Wiccan decks, or at least used to be, because she was a 1-drop that gave you a 2-drop. Back when more people were playing Wiccan decks that actually played multiple 1-drops instead of Quicksilver, it was very common to see this card included. She is generally excellent, being a card that can not just generate your 1-drop and your 2-drop, but also pair with other cards to make sure you have a guarantee at getting to Wiccan. Yes, sometimes it's Maria Hill into the Maria Hill 2-drop into an unrelated 3-drop. Sometimes it's Maria Hill into Kate Bishop into the Maria Hill card and a Kate Bishop card because that guarantees 1, 2, and 3. That is sort of what this card is trying to do, just generally good. It's also going to generate a cheap card that gets buffed by Victoria Hand, which is quite important, actually. There's a little bit of tension between wanting to be a Snowguard deck and wanting to be a Kate Bishop deck. I have chosen to embrace that tension, but I can understand why you might not. I do think Snowguard has really demonstrated that she is a very valuable part of decks like this because of the utility she can have, but also because her bodies that she creates are typically going to be larger, and usually you're going to care about maybe you have, let's say you have a double Victoria Hand going, you're going to want to play that 3/8 bear, for example. That's kind of what she's doing. Obviously, there's other ways that you can use her effect, but mostly she is just a card that costs 1, which you need because you're a Wiccan deck, that puts cards into your hand, which you're very happy about, and the only time you're really unhappy to see her is when she is your 1-drop and Kate Bishop is your 2-drop, because then you are bricking yourself out of a draw. I don't think you necessarily need Hydra Bob to play this deck. I think that a Quinjet would be a fair replacement, honestly, but Hydra Bob is here to make your Iron Patriots more good, basically. That is the role that Hydra Bob is playing here. It's a card that can contest your opponent's Iron Patriots. It's a card that can go with your Iron Patriots. Between Hydra Bob and Speed, you are hitting Iron Patriots a lot more than decks that are playing, say, Agent Coulson, right? Like, you are really able to do that. And I think that that means that you have not only an ability to make sure you get your Iron Patriots, but also an increased ability to deny your opponents. I think that does matter right now. If I had to guess at what the 12th card in this deck is, I would say it is probably Mirage. But because there are so many people playing Iron Patriots, so many people playing Victoria Hand, so many people playing cheap cards that you are really interested in, and because this card is a card that will always get you something that is cheap, and you care so much about that because of V-Hand and because of how much you want to be playing a bunch of cards that get buffed by V-Hand, this is a very important card, even though it is probably card 12 and definitely what I would try to experiment around with. Right now, she's basically like if Cable was always hitting good stuff. There's so much insane stuff to hit, from your opponent's Iron Patrioted cards to their Victoria Hands to a variety of things like the Hood, even. There's just a bunch of crazy stuff. Getting a demon is obviously ridiculous. Getting even stuff like arrows off of your opponent's Kate Bishop, like, you play Kate Bishop, getting a 3-power Pim arrow that then gets a couple of V-Hand buffs, that's a huge card and it costs 1. And even that kind of stuff, it just sort of adds up. Like, this deck has a lot of ability to get a bunch of cheap stuff that really works with V-Hand. So you remember how I just said that this deck has a lot of ability to get a bunch of cheap stuff that works with V-Hand? Yeah, so Kate Bishop, a lot of ability to get a bunch of cheap stuff that works with V-Hand. That's our girl. Like, this is absolutely something that you're going to be interested in doing. Getting multiple V-Hand buffs onto Kate Bishop arrows is absolutely crazy. People play a whole deck called Zoo that is predicated on giving 1-cost cards 1 extra power. Your arrows are getting 2 to 4 extra power, sometimes 6 if you went completely ridiculous. This should make a lot of sense to you. Iron Patriot is generally excellent here, in part because you're built for him with Hydra Bob and with Speed, but also because you are built for him with Frigga on the back end, which allows you to make multiple additionally large plays with Iron Patriot cards. Being able to Frigga the Iron Patriot card that you get, for example, I got a Hulkling, or stuff like that, or being able to Frigga your Victoria Hand, also ridiculous. Being able to Frigga a rogue that stole something good from your opponent. There's a bunch of stuff that Frigga does, and Iron Patriot is probably the second of them, if I had to guess. But Iron Patriot, just on his own, outside of that synergy, is just something you're very excited about. We love cheap stuff. We especially love cheap stuff that doesn't die to Killmonger. So that means that Iron Patriot creating this cheap stuff is awesome. The most it's ever going to cost is 2. It's very often going to cost 0 or 1. Exactly what we're looking for, almost agnostic of what the card actually is. And that's to say nothing of the insane high rolls this card can generate. I'm not sure Moonstone is worth picking up if you don't own Victoria Hand. Like, yes, you can try the Patriot stuff. I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea, but there's enough Enchantress out here that I probably wouldn't want to do that. This deck is the kind of deck that can win through an Enchantress because, yes, you are doing Victoria Hand stuff. Yes, it is awesome, but you're not actually always priced into fully committing to the Moonstone lane. Like, some of the time when you have a second Victoria hand, you don't need to put that in the Moonstone lane. You just play that for 7 points somewhere else. Like, that's really one of the things that I think a lot of people might make mistakes on with this deck is like, you don't need to all in the Moonstone lane. You genuinely do not. You are very fine to play ongoing cards outside of the Moonstone lane in expectation of them interacting with you in some way. That is absolutely a thing you should expect and should be willing to play around. V-Hand is your nut draw. Your nut draw is they don't interact with your V-Hand Moonstone. Your nut draw is you are able to copy V-Hand with Frigga. She is extremely large. Imagine if Cerebro was good. That's V-Hand. Because of all of this, I am running a rogue. It's a little tough because, like, I would normally want in a Wiccan deck to be running Red Guardian instead. But the value of stealing an opposing V-Hand in a mirror is so much higher than the value of Red Guardian in an opposing V-Hand. And everyone is so used to Red Guardian that they're almost always playing their V-Hands and Loot Cages protected. But they're not playing them protected from a card that targets ongoings. You are trying to hit your opponent's V-Hand, Moonstone, Loot Cage, whatever. That's what this card does. She is excellent right now. I know it's not normal to play a card that you are going to run the risk of like, oh man, I might have to curve this card out. You probably won't ever have to actually curve her out because so many of your early game cards make cards. But she is that good in mirrors, so I do think it's worth doing. Similarly, it's hard to come up with a good replacement for speed. I think the actual answer might literally be Punisher. Like, this is a card that goes extremely tall and has synergy with Moonstone, which makes it go even taller effectively. This card in a Moonstone is like basically 20 power in a lane on its own. That's just really good. Like, you're just really happy with that a lot of the time. And because of that, this is an important piece for the deck. I do wonder how replacing it with Punisher could do. I think if you have everything for this deck other than speed, I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to that, but there is like a noticeable drop-off in my opinion. It's crazy how relevant Frigga is right now because of a variety of factors. Like, this is a card that is finally getting its chance to shine. It was in Move Bounce for a while. It sort of made itself known as a part of that list. And now with Iron Patriot's release, it's become a card that has multiple overlaps. Iron Patriot and Victoria Hand are really who you would blame for this card being back. Those are the second and the best thing to copy in this deck almost consistently. Of course, I don't mean literal Iron Patriot. I mean the thing you get from Iron Patriot. But that's really what Frigga's role here is. Her job is to take a card you play in your deck, or maybe a card you don't play in your deck, and make sure that it's a card that gets buffed by Victoria Hand, apply that tag to it so it gets even bigger, or just, you know, cheat, like play a Gore and copy it because your Gore costs 2 or whatever. Like, just stuff that's just actually totally unfair. There's a lot that this card can do, and your nut draw of copying V-Hands is strong enough that it is a snap condition against most things. Weirdly, Moonstone is, like, very obviously good in this list, but also not necessarily, like, the most important card in this list. She's important because we already talked about how good copying Victoria Hands is. Moonstone effectively says, copy a Victoria Hand. You're very happy to play 4/6 Victoria Hand 2. You love that. You're a huge fan of it. It's definitely something that you are definitely interested in doing. But I do think that, like, it's entirely possible that this is not necessarily, like, whoa, you need Moonstone for this, and it's more just like the rest of what we're doing here is so strong. Granted, she felt awesome for me. Like I said, this was, statistically, this is the best deck I've played this month, and she felt pretty good in it. That's what I can say. I'm such a sucker for Wiccan, and it's really cool to me how Iron Patriot coming out sort of changed the dynamic among 4-drops. Before Iron Patriot released, the second best build around 4-drop to me was Doom 2099. Now we have different things pushing the build around 4-drop archetype. We have Wiccan, we have Malekith, we have Anti-Venom, who I rated originally above Doom 2099. Now I kind of think that with Iron Patriot around, that sort of precludes you being a Doom 2099 deck if you want to be an Iron Patriot deck. So you end up with Doom 2099 probably falling below Wiccan as well, because Wiccan is more easily able to accommodate Iron Patriot. I think that's really cool. Honestly, it is. It is really, really cool to see that. I also think that it's just like kind of a sick, awesome thing that this deck is just able to have Wiccan in it and not really care. Wiccan is just here. He's like, oh, it's a 4/7 with upside, but like it's hardly a required card. This would be, if I had to guess, card 11 or 10 in the deck, where it's like, it's cool. I like it, but it's entirely possible that we want to go for like the Hood Misery package instead of the Wiccan stuff. I could totally see that, right? Like that makes perfect sense to me. And that would not surprise me in the slightest. He wasn't bad. It's very hard for a card like this to be bad. That's sort of the reason why it makes sense. So, should you buy Moonstone? My answer, always, 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 is wait until the OTA. You're watching this video on a Wednesday. There's an OTA on Thursday. Take your time. Figure it out. The other thing that I will say is it feels like Moonstone is very tied to the success of Victoria hands specifically, and to a lesser degree Speed, and then probably to a lesser degree than that Patriot. There's not actually a lot of hooks for this card. I will say this is as good as Cerebro 6 has ever been. I'll be honest about that. It is factually true, because you get to be a Moonstone deck that plays Enchantress. That's super sick. There's some real upside there. There's a limited amount of roles for Victoria hand, or not for Victoria hand, for Moonstone to have. There's basically like 4 decks ever that she goes in. So a card like this is only ever worth purchasing if the deck is so clearly the best deck that there's not even a question about it, right? If this is a card that will make you have access to the best deck, then it ends up being worth purchasing. You need to wait and figure out if it is going to be the best deck, and you need to wait and figure out what happens in the OTA. Hence my advice with Moonstone, take a breath, sit back, relax. I will say, again, this was the best deck I've played this month. Best stats I've had. I don't know how meaningful that is when there's an OTA tomorrow. As always, thank you so much for watching. We're going to jump into some gameplay right here. I've been KM Best, and you have been phenomenal. We'll see you in the next one. They didn't draw a card. That's nice. Timer Dimer? Boy. Yikes. Do I snap this? I think I have to. Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. I feel like I'm getting gored. 5, 8, 18, 21. $9 12. Yeah, but it's not like it's gonna be hard for them to win that late. $9 12. The arrow is 6, so 16, 21, 24. If I get fucking gored here, I swear to God. Weirdly fine. For now. Let's go, dude! Oh my God. It's exactly fine because I calculated it. If we'd done the other play, putting Heimdall on the right, we would have gotten our shit kicked. Ba 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 ba. I knew to tell him with a pun, like some Hydra Bob pun thing. All right, let's see it. Oh God. Fuck, that's horrifying. What, do they have a Killmonger in there or something? Ugh. Yep. What's the left? Let's Let's go! Let's go, dude! Weird move. Oh, shit. I mean, I feel like I legally kind of have to snap this. I have Victoria Hand, Frigga, Wiccan. That just can't be bad. All right. I mean, it's not my favorite thing in the fucking world, but I think we'll figure it out. Let's go with that. Kind of expected that. Got him. I expected some sort of interaction over here, whether it be Rogue or Enchantress or just... I do my best to prove you right, still. You sure it was C6? You know, you just never can be sure. How's it going, Hanson? It's going well. I think this is correct. Whoa, they snapped me? What are they snapping me about? feel like I'm supposed to do this. What am I missing? I don't know. Let's find out what I'm missing. They like a red guardian or something? I'm good. I'm good. A future Quake? Yeah, no, I can see that. This feels like they have to have Enchantress. They're playing like a Sarah deck, yeah? Cover for a potential Quake? Do I want to cover for a potential Quake? Oh, yeah, okay. I think I still win the tiebreaker here, even with the Cancun. Just because we have so many things stacking on the Pim arrow. Yeah. I mean, the Juggernaut makes sense. 11 power V-hand garbage. I'm getting real risky with it. But I think this is about right. Flipping a 10. That's insane. So this would pull the Hawk in here. Oh, it wouldn't do anything, actually. Go 8 plus 3. We'd lose if Real Mysterio was left. I think we're gonna lose here because Real Mysterio might be left. Oh. No, we're gonna win. Even if Real Mysterio is left. Yeah, that didn't even win the right lane. I just assumed they'd have some to win the right lane. They didn't. So this is basically, they're just gonna let that Dracula try to win. And all we have to do is make it not. But, once again, huh. I have a rogue. We'll see if I can do anything about this. If I draw a B hand, this is dumb, but it is what it is, I think. Isn't basic always more power? Depends on how much I feel I need these speeds. I just think I'm supposed to just try to hit Moonstone here. It can be like 33% if they play like Luke Cage and stuff in the vats too. But I think that's just it. We're just gonna try to hit Moonstone and that's it. And that's just enough to try. Okay. It's still on the speed, I suppose. Oh my god, that hit wins them. Wait, no, it breaks their Cerebro. Let's go, baby. That hit, it wouldn't have mattered. It's the same, like, 8 power on that lane anyway. Thank you for the primes. Prozac for 26 months. That's insane. All right, Morbius. I think we could all do with a little bit less bias. Shit. They're not going to expect an actual contest here. Look at that. Look at that actual contest. Kind of like snap Snowhawk. I think we might be snapping here depending on what happens. Oh boy. Gosh. Iron Patriot does go off before Bob moved. That's not why we're snapping. That's like distinctly not why we're snapping. We're snapping because we have a rogue. This is why we were snapping. Play Acid Arrow mid for BM? No. Come on now. So this rogue is either taking Pim Arrow and winning left, or taking V-Hand and winning the shit out of every other one. Oh shit. Do we lose now? Oh my god. Wait a minute. We still win. Maybe? Oh, Jesus. Oh my god, by 1 point. That was horrifying! What the fuck? We still win by 1 point on the right through Drax. Jesus!